It was a quiet morning in a small neighborhood where everyone knew each other. The sun had just started to rise, painting the houses with a warm golden color. Birds were singing, and the smell of fresh tea came from open kitchen windows. In this peaceful area lived a man named Ali. He was a kind and calm person who liked order and respect. His small blue car was always parked neatly in his own driveway. Ali had lived there for many years, and everyone respected him. He helped his neighbors, fixed broken fences, and never raised his voice. People often said that Ali was the reason the street felt peaceful. But that peace was about to be tested in a way no one expected. That morning, Ali had gone for his daily walk. He liked to breathe in the fresh air and greet the old gardener at the corner house. While he was away, something unusual happened. A loud sound of an engine echoed through the street. A bright, shiny car turned into the lane, catching everyone's attention. It was a pink Porsche, brand new, clean, and sparkling under the sun. The car stopped right in front of the house next to Ali's. That house had recently been sold to a woman named Karen. She was new in the neighborhood and liked to show off her wealth. Her daughter Rena was the one driving the Porsche. Rena looked proud and confident, wearing expensive clothes and sunglasses even though it was early morning. She got out of the car and looked around with an unimpressed face. Her eyes stopped on Ali's driveway. The space looked wide and neat, much better than the small space in front of her own gate. Rena frowned as if she owned the whole street. "This space is perfect for my car," she said to herself. She didn't care that it belonged to someone else. She pulled out her phone and made a quick call to a towing service. "Yes, there's a blue car parked where I want to park." "It's blocking my space," she lied smoothly. "Come and tow it away." The man on the phone didn't ask too many questions. Soon a tow truck appeared on the street. The workers looked confused when they saw the quiet neighborhood, but Rena pointed at Ali's blue car and said, "That one, tow it away." Within minutes, the tow truck hooked up Ali's car and drove off. The whole thing happened so fast that only a few neighbors saw it. They stood near their windows whispering. "Is that Mr. Ali's car?" one old lady asked. "Yes," another neighbor said. "What is she doing? That's not her driveway." No one dared to argue with Rena or her mother. Everyone knew Karen was loud and difficult. The last time someone questioned her about her dog barking all night, she yelled for an hour, so people stayed quiet, shaking their heads. When Ali returned from his walk, he noticed something strange right away. His driveway was empty. His car, which always stood in the same place, was gone. He blinked, wondering if he was mistaken. But then his eyes moved to the right, and there it was. The shiny pink Porsche parked proudly in his driveway like it belonged there. Ali stood there silently for a long moment. He didn't shout. He didn't wave his arms. He simply looked at the car and then at the house next door. Karen was standing on her porch sipping tea. When she saw Ali, she smiled politely but said nothing. Rena came out holding her phone and gave Ali a careless look. "Morning," she said quickly. "I hope you don't mind. My car is a bit big. Your space is better." Ali looked at her, then nodded slowly. His face showed no anger, but inside his mind a plan started forming. He didn't believe in fighting with words. He believed in teaching lessons through actions. He went inside his house and sat at his table. He opened his laptop and began typing something. Ali worked as an engineer for a transport company. He knew a lot about parking rules, legal property boundaries, and even the city's towing system. While Rena and Karen laughed outside, enjoying their new place, Ali calmly started gathering information. He opened the city's property website, entered his house number, and printed a copy of his property boundary map. He highlighted the exact measurement of his driveway. It was clearly marked as private property. Then he called the local parking control office. His voice was calm but confident. "Good morning," he said. "I believe there has been an illegal parking issue on my private driveway. I also believe a false towing request was made earlier today." The officer on the other side listened carefully. When Ali sent over the property proof, the officer promised to look into it. Meanwhile, outside, Rena was busy taking pictures of her pink Porsche for social media. She posed beside it and smiled for her followers. "Just parked my new car at my new home," she typed proudly. She had no idea what was coming. By afternoon, a few neighbors came by to talk to Ali. They were worried that there might be an argument. One of them said, "Ali, are you going to let this go? That girl towed your car." Ali smiled and replied, No need to argue. Sometimes patience is the best answer. But patience was not his only plan. That night, when the street was quiet, he made a few more calls. He contacted his friend who worked in the city vehicle department. He explained everything carefully. His friend agreed to help as long as everything stayed legal. Next morning, Rena and Karen were surprised to hear loud knocks on their door. 2 city officers stood outside. "Good morning," one officer said. "We have received a report about illegal towing and parking on private property." Karen frowned and tried to argue. "This is a misunderstanding. My daughter just parked for a little while." The officer showed her the documents Ali had submitted. "According to the property record, this driveway belongs to Mr. Ali. Your daughter's vehicle is parked illegally. The towing record shows that she gave a false reason for removing his car. That is against city rules." Rena's smile disappeared. "I didn't know," she said softly. The officer nodded. "You will need to pay a fine and your car will be removed." The pink Porsche was towed away under the eyes of all the neighbors. Everyone watched quietly, trying not to laugh but feeling satisfied inside. Ali didn't come out. He was inside his house reading a book. He didn't need to watch. He knew justice was being served. When the truck left, Karen walked over to Ali's house. She knocked on his door. He opened it calmly. "Mr. Ali," she said, trying to sound polite, "this has gone too far. My daughter is young. She made a mistake." Ali looked at her with a kind face. "Everyone makes mistakes, Mrs. Karen, but sometimes mistakes become lessons." Karen didn't reply. She walked away, her face red with embarrassment. The next day, Rena's pink Porsche was parked correctly in her own driveway. She didn't touch Ali's space again. The neighbors smiled when they passed Ali's house. They had seen something simple but powerful. Ali had shown that calmness and intelligence could win over arrogance. From that day on, people respected Ali even more. They called him the man who solved problems without shouting. Even Karen started greeting him politely whenever she saw him. Rena avoided eye contact, but deep down, she had learned something valuable about respect. Ali continued his peaceful life as before. He cleaned his car every weekend, waved to his neighbors, and kept his smile. The street felt calm again, but now there was a quiet story behind every house. A story about a man who didn't need anger to prove his strength. Sometimes real power doesn't come from loud words or big actions. It comes from quiet confidence and smart choices. And Ali had shown everyone exactly that. After the incident with the pink Porsche, the whole neighborhood started talking about Mr. Ali. Everyone admired how he handled the problem. He didn't shout or fight, yet he got justice. His calm way impressed everyone. The story spread across the street like a quiet wind. Even people from the next lane heard about it. Ali, however, didn't like attention. He simply continued his daily life. Every morning he watered his plants, read his newspaper, and went to work. But even when he acted normal, people noticed a small smile on his face. It was not a proud smile, but a peaceful one that came from knowing he did the right thing. On the other side, things were not so peaceful. Inside the new house, Karen and Rena were having a long argument. Karen was upset because of the fine they had to pay. She was angry at her daughter, but she also felt embarrassed in front of her neighbors. "Rena, what were you thinking?" Karen asked, pacing in the living room. "We just moved here and now everyone sees us as troublemakers." Rena sat on the couch folding her arms. "It is not my fault. I didn't know it was his driveway." Karen sighed. "It is written clearly on the ground. How could you not know?" Rena looked away, feeling a bit guilty but too proud to admit it. She had always lived with everything handed to her easily. No one had ever told her no before. Now being scolded and embarrassed in front of the neighborhood felt new to her. Outside, neighbors who walked by gave short glances toward their house. Some smiled politely, others looked away. It made Rena uncomfortable. She realized that her image had changed. She was no longer the stylish girl with the new Porsche. She was the girl who parked in someone else's driveway and got caught. Ali, on the other hand, didn't let the situation bother him, but he noticed something interesting in the days that followed. Rena's pink Porsche was always parked properly now, but sometimes he saw her looking toward his house from her window. At first, he ignored it. Then one morning, as he was cleaning his car, Rena came out slowly, walking toward him. "Mr. Ali," she said softly, "I wanted to say sorry." Ali stopped and looked at her. Her voice was quiet and respectful. It was a big change from the confident girl who had ordered the tow truck. He gave her a small nod. "I appreciate that," he said simply. "Thank you." Rena hesitated for a second and then asked, "You didn't shout that day. Why? Anyone else would have been angry?" Allie smiled a little. "Anger does not fix problems. Calm mind finds better answers." Rena didn't reply but nodded slowly. She had never heard someone speak like that before. In her world, people always reacted quickly and loudly. This calm attitude was strange to her, but it made her think. From that day, Rena started greeting Allie whenever she saw him. It was a small step, but it was the start of a quiet change. Karen noticed it and frowned. She didn't like the idea of her daughter talking to the man who had embarrassed her family. But she said nothing because she didn't want another scene. One weekend, the neighborhood had a small community meeting at the park. The topic was simple maintenance of the street, cleaning and parking rules. Everyone came with chairs and snacks. Karen attended too, wearing expensive clothes and pretending nothing had happened. Rena followed quietly behind her. Allie was already there, talking to the older residents. When Karen saw him, she felt awkward but forced a polite smile. "Good afternoon, Mr. Allie," she said. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Karen," Allie replied kindly. During the meeting, the head of the community praised Ali for his calm attitude. "We all can learn from how Mr. Ali handled the parking issue," he said with a smile. Everyone nodded in agreement. Karen felt uncomfortable but kept quiet. After the meeting ended, Rena walked up to Ali again. "Mr. Ali," she said, "I learned something from all this. I used to think people respect only those who have expensive things. But now I see they respect kindness more." Ali looked at her and said, "Then true respect is not bought with money. It is earned through actions." Her eyes widened a little. She wanted to ask more, but her mother called her, so she left. Later that evening, Rena sat by her window thinking about his words. For the first time, she felt that her car, clothes, and gadgets didn't make her important. It was strange, but also freeing. Meanwhile, Karen was not as peaceful. She had started to feel jealous of how much people respected Ali. Neighbors often mentioned his name, praising his patience. Even when they didn't mean harm, she took it personally. She began to think that Ali had made her family look foolish on purpose. One afternoon, Karen invited some guests from her old city. She wanted to show them she was doing well. She arranged a small party in her garden, full of decorations and music. Cars lined up on the street. Some guests parked on the edges of other driveways, blocking part of the road. Ali watched quietly from his house. He didn't want any problem, but the situation looked messy. Soon one of his elderly neighbors, Mr. Rafiq, came to him looking worried. "Ali," Mr. Rafiq said, "my car is blocked. I need to go to the doctor, but I cannot move." Ali looked outside and saw one of Karen's guests had parked in front of Rafiq's gate. He nodded and said, "Don't worry, I will handle it." He walked over to Karen's garden. The music was loud and people were laughing. When Karen saw Ali coming, she smiled tightly. "Oh, Mr. Ali, did you come to join us?" Ali shook his head politely. "No, I came to tell you one of your guests has blocked Mr. Rafiq's gate. He needs to go to the doctor." Karen rolled her eyes. "It's just for a short time. The guest will leave soon." Ali stayed calm. "Mr. Rafiq is not well. Please ask them to move the car." Karen didn't like being told what to do in front of her guests. She forced a smile and said, "All right, I will tell them." She turned around and asked loudly, "Who parked near the old man's gate? Please move your car." One of the guests raised his hand lazily and went out. The car was moved and Mr. Rafiq could leave. The matter was solved quickly, but Ali noticed the irritation in Karen's eyes. She didn't like the way people listened to him. That night, Karen complained to Rena. "Everyone listens to that man. It is like he controls this street," Rena replied quietly. "Maybe because he helps everyone." Karen didn't like the answer. "You are starting to sound like him." Rena smiled a little. "Maybe that's not bad." Days passed and winter started to come. The trees lost their leaves and the wind became cold. Rena started spending more time studying in the garden. Sometimes Ali would walk by and she would wave. One day she saw him carrying heavy boxes toward the community center. She ran over to help him. "Let me carry one," she said. Ali was surprised but smiled. "Thank you. It is good to see young people help." They carried the boxes together and placed them inside the hall. Rena noticed they were full of books. "What are these for?" she asked. "These are for the small library we are building for children," Ali explained. Many kids here don't have books at home, so we are collecting donations. Rena felt impressed. Can I help too? Allie nodded. Of course. You can sort the books by age group. She spent the afternoon helping him. For the first time, she felt a sense of purpose. It wasn't about showing off. It was about doing something good. Later, when she went home, Karen noticed the dust on her hands and frowned. What were you doing? Helping with the library, Rena replied proudly. Mr. Alley is organizing it. Karen shook her head. You don't need to waste time on such things. Rena looked at her mother calmly. It is not a waste. It feels good. Karen didn't reply. She felt confused and slightly worried. Her daughter was changing. The influence of that calm man was starting to reach her home. The following weekend, the library opened. Many children came to see the books. Rena stood beside Allie, helping the kids choose stories. The parents thanked Allie for his efforts. Everyone smiled and the atmosphere was full of warmth. When Karen came to see what was happening, she saw her daughter laughing with the children. The same neighbors who once whispered about her were now smiling at Rena. For a moment, Karen felt something she hadn't felt before. Pride mixed with humility. Allie noticed her standing at the door. He walked up and said politely, Good to see you here, Mrs. Karen. Karen nodded slowly. You have done something nice for everyone, Mr. Alley. Allie smiled. We all can make the street better when we work together. Karen didn't say more, but inside her heart something softened. She realized that true respect wasn't forced. It grew naturally when people acted with kindness. That night, as Rena looked out of her window, she saw the street glowing under the moonlight. It felt different now. She understood that being powerful didn't mean having the most money or the biggest car. It meant making people smile. And while the pink Porsche still shone in her driveway, it no longer felt like the most important thing she owned. The lesson she learned from the man next door had become more valuable than any luxury. Winter continued to cover the small neighborhood in a calm silence. The trees stood bare, the mornings were misty, and people wore thick coats as they walked to work. The community library that Ali helped build had become the heart of the area. Every weekend, children came there to read and parents came to volunteer. The once quiet street was now filled with laughter and soft voices of people greeting one another. Ali often sat near the library window, repairing old books or helping children with their homework. He liked the peace it brought. Rena was often there too. She had started coming almost every weekend, not because anyone asked her to, but because she wanted to. She had grown comfortable among the people she once ignored. The children liked her because she helped them with drawing and storytelling. The neighbors noticed how much she had changed. She no longer dressed to show off or spoke proudly about her car. Instead, she listened, smiled, and helped. The pink Porsche still stood in her driveway, but it was no longer the center of her world. One afternoon, as Ali was arranging books, he noticed Rena talking to an elderly man named Mr. Hanif. He was one of the oldest residents on the street and often needed help walking to the store. Rena listened to him carefully and wrote something down in her small notebook. After he left, Ali asked, "What did Mr. Hanif say?" Rena smiled. "He said he wishes he had someone to bring him groceries because his legs hurt." Ali nodded. "That is kind of him to share." "What will you do about it?" Rena looked thoughtful. "Maybe I can start a small group to help older neighbors. We can bring them food or medicine when they need it." Ali's face brightened. "That is a good idea. If you lead it, people will join." The next day, Rena printed a few small posters and placed them on the community board. The paper read, "Helping Hands Group. For anyone who needs help with daily tasks. Contact Rena." At first, only 2 people responded, but within a week, many neighbors started offering help. Even students from nearby houses joined. Ali guided them on how to stay organized and careful. Slowly, the group grew into something beautiful. Every weekend, they would meet at the library, make a list of people who needed help, and divide the tasks. Karen watched all this from her porch. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she saw how happy her daughter had become. One morning she asked, "Rena, why do you spend so much time there? You come home late and you look tired." Rena smiled. "Because it feels good to help others, Mama. You should come sometime." Karen didn't reply, but she began to think about it. As weeks passed, something unexpected happened. A new family moved into the street. They drove big cars and acted proud. Their son, named Bilal, was about Rena's age. On his first day, he parked his large black car right in front of someone's house without asking. The owner, a kind man named Ahmed, went outside and said politely, "Excuse me, could you please move your car? It is blocking my gate." Bilal laughed and replied, "It's just for a little while." He didn't move the car. Ahmed looked helpless. When Rina saw the scene from the library window, she remembered the day she had parked in Ali's driveway. The feeling of shame came back to her mind. She walked outside and approached Bilal. "Hey," she said softly, "you should move your car." "That is his gate," Bilal smirked. "Why do you care?" Rina stayed calm. "Because everyone here respects each other's space. This is not a busy city street. People here live like family." Bilal looked around. The neighbors were watching silently. For a moment he seemed unsure. Then he shrugged. "Fine," he said, and moved his car. Afterward, Ahmed thanked Rina. "You handled that well," he said. Rina smiled. "I once made a similar mistake. I learned from it." Ali saw this from a distance. He felt proud but didn't say anything. He knew the lesson had taken root. Later that evening, Rina visited Ali's house. "Mr. Ali," she said, "I want to tell you something. When I saw that boy acting like I used to, I realized how much I have changed." "It felt strange but good." Ali nodded kindly. "Growth always feels strange at first. You have learned through experience, and that is the best way." Rina looked down at her hands and said, "Thank you for not being angry that day. If you had shouted at me, I would have never learned anything." Ali smiled. Sometimes silence speaks louder than anger. The next morning, the Helping Hands group met again. This time, more people came. Even Karen decided to join them. She didn't say much but quietly helped pack grocery bags. Some of the older women in the group welcomed her warmly. One said, "It's good to have you here, Karen. Your daughter has done a lot for this street." Karen was surprised. She hadn't expected people to speak kindly about her family. She smiled shyly. "Thank you," she said. After the work was done, Ali gathered everyone for tea in the garden near the library. The air was cold, but the atmosphere was warm. They shared small snacks and talked about future plans. Someone suggested they plant trees along the road. Another person said they could paint the walls to make the street look brighter. Everyone liked the ideas. Ali looked around at the group of neighbors, young and old, all working together. He thought about how much had changed since the day Rina's car was towed. What started as a problem had turned into a reason for the community to grow closer. Karen sat beside Rina, sipping her tea. For the first time, she felt relaxed. She noticed that no one cared about her expensive clothes or her big house. People respected kindness, not wealth. She looked at Ali and said, "You have changed this place, Mr. Ali." Ali smiled. It was always a good place. It only needed a little care. Later that week, the group began planting trees along the sidewalks. Small children ran around with shovels, laughing. The elders watched happily from their chairs. Even Bilal, the new boy, came to help after seeing how everyone worked together. During the planting, Rina noticed one small boy struggling to dig a hole. She knelt beside him and helped. The boy looked up and said, "Thank you. My tree will grow tall like yours?" Rina laughed gently. "Yes, and you must take care of it." Ali watched this scene from across the road. He saw how far Rina had come from the day she ordered his car towed. It reminded him that patience always wins in the end. In the following days, the street looked different. The walls were painted bright colors. The new trees lined the road. Children rode bicycles in the afternoons. Even strangers passing by slowed down to admire how peaceful and organized it looked. One evening, a city officer visited the area. He had come to check the new library records and was surprised by the improvement. "This street looks better than before," he said. "It feels alive," Ali replied modestly. "It's the work of everyone here." The officer smiled. "Maybe you can help guide other communities too. We could use people like you in our city projects." Ali thanked him and promised to think about it. When he told the neighbors, they were excited. They felt proud that their small community was now an example for others. Rina clapped her hands in excitement. "See, Mr. Ali, your calm way changed everything." Ali chuckled. "Not my way, Rina. Our way." As days passed, the Helping Hands group continued to grow. They started visiting nearby areas to share ideas. They helped clean parks, plant trees, and donate books. People started recognizing them across town. One morning, a journalist came to write a story about the group. She interviewed Ali and Rina together. When she asked how it all began, Rina smiled and said, "It started with a mistake." I parked my car in someone's driveway, but instead of shouting, he taught me a lesson with kindness. That lesson changed my life. The journalist wrote the story and published it in the local paper. When Karen read it, she felt tears in her eyes. She looked at Rena and said, "I am proud of you." Rena smiled and hugged her mother. "Thank you, Mama. But we should be proud of everyone here." From that day, people from other streets began visiting their neighborhood to learn how they worked together. The place became known as the Friendly Street. Ali never wanted fame, but he was happy to see people smiling. He often said, "If one kind act can grow into many, the world becomes lighter for everyone." At night, when the streetlights glowed softly and the leaves of the young trees moved in the wind, Rena often stood outside her house. She looked at the driveway where it all began, the same place where her mistake started her journey. She whispered to herself, "Every wrong step can become a right path if we choose to learn." And inside his home, Ali looked out through his window, seeing the peace that had returned to the street. He smiled quietly, thankful for the power of patience and kindness. Months passed peacefully in the small neighborhood. The air had become warmer. The trees planted by the Helping Hands group had started to grow small green leaves, and the street looked bright and full of life. People had become closer, helping one another, and the library had become a favorite place for children. Ali still lived his calm and simple life. Every morning he watered his plants, cleaned his blue car, and smiled at anyone who passed by. Rena often helped him with small tasks or stopped by to ask questions about the library project. She respected him deeply, not as a teacher or an elder, but as a person who had shown her the right path. Karen, too, had changed, though she did not admit it openly. She no longer tried to show off. She smiled more often and spoke kindly to her neighbors. People who once avoided her now stopped to talk. She even shared food during gatherings, and her laughter had started to sound genuine again. The street was happy, but sometimes life sends a test when everything feels perfect. One bright morning, a new problem arrived. A construction company came to the neighborhood with heavy trucks and loud machines. They were going to build a tall communication tower at the corner of the street. The workers marked several areas with red paint, including a small part near the library garden. Ali watched the workers and asked one of them politely, "Is this part also included in the plan?" The man looked at his paper and said, "Yes, sir. We will need to cut some trees and remove a part of the garden." Ali frowned slightly. That garden was the pride of the street. The children had planted flowers there, and Rena had painted a small wooden board that said, "Our Green Home." The idea of losing it saddened him. When Rena heard about it, she ran to the garden. The workers were already preparing their equipment. She quickly called the group members. Within an hour, many neighbors gathered around. Karen came too, holding a bottle of water for the workers. "Why are you cutting these trees?" she asked. The supervisor, a man in a yellow helmet, replied, "We have government permission. The tower will help improve network signals. The garden is in the project area." Ali stepped forward. "We are not against progress," he said calmly, "but this place has become important to our community. Is there no way to move the tower a little farther?" The man looked at his documents and shook his head. "I only follow orders." Rena looked at Ali, her face full of worry. "What can we do now?" Ali thought for a moment. "We will not fight. We will talk." He went home and called his friend at the city department, the same one who had helped him before. He explained the situation politely. His friend said he would check the details and call back. Meanwhile, the neighbors decided to protect the garden. They stayed there the whole afternoon, sitting near the plants and reading books. The workers didn't want trouble, so they waited. By evening, Ali received a call. His friend said, "Mr. Ali, according to the map, that garden was made on public land but registered under a community care project. You have the right to request relocation of the tower. You must submit a petition with signatures." Ali thanked him. Then he called everyone to the library. Rena brought paper and pens, and people began signing the petition. Children even drew small hearts on it, calling it, "Save Our Garden." By the next morning, Ali took the petition to the city office. Rena and Karen went with him. It was the first time Karen had entered such an office for a public issue. She looked nervous but proud. When they met the official, Ali explained everything calmly. "We understand the importance of the tower," he said, "but our garden brings people together. We request that it be built a few meters away, near the empty ground. The officer looked at the documents, saw the number of signatures, and said, "We will review it." A week passed, and during that time, the neighbors continued to care for the garden. They watered the plants, repainted the fences, and even added more flowers. The street looked more beautiful than ever. Children played near the library every evening. Then one morning a notice arrived from the city office. It said the tower would be moved 50 meters away to the empty lot behind the main road. The garden would remain untouched. When the news spread, everyone cheered. The children clapped and the elders smiled. Rena hugged Karen tightly, saying, "We did it." Karen laughed. "No, we did it together." Allie looked at the happy faces around him and said, "This is what unity means. When people stand together with respect, even big problems find small solutions." The workers returned a few days later, but this time they smiled at the neighbors. One of them said, "You people really care about this place. We will build carefully." Allie thanked them and offered tea to the team. Even the supervisor, who had been strict before, shook his hand. Over the next few weeks, as the tower construction began in the new location, life returned to normal. But the incident had left a strong impression on everyone. They realized how far they had come as a community. In the past, such a problem might have caused arguments. Now they solved it together, calmly and wisely. Rena had learned not only kindness but also courage. She started taking more responsibility in the Helping Hands group. She organized activities for children and taught them how to take care of the garden. The kids admired her. They called her Teacher Rena, and that made her smile every time. Karen often helped too. She cooked snacks for the children and sometimes shared stories from her youth. She no longer cared about fancy parties or expensive decorations. Her happiness came from seeing others smile. One evening, as the sun set behind the rooftops, Rena and Ali sat near the garden bench. The air smelled of flowers and the sound of children laughing filled the street. "Mr. Ali," Rena said, "I never thought life could feel like this." "It feels peaceful," Ali nodded. "Peace is not given. It is built slowly like this garden." Rena smiled. "Do you think we can make other streets like this too?" Ali looked at her kindly. "Yes. If people understand the value of respect, any place can change." The next month, the city invited Ali and Rena to a community event. They were asked to speak about their neighborhood project. When they arrived at the event, many other groups from different areas were present. Some people recognized them from the newspaper story. When Ali went on stage, he spoke in his usual calm tone. "Our story is simple," he said. "Once a misunderstanding caused anger on our street. But instead of fighting, we chose patience and kindness. That choice grew into a friendship that changed everything." The audience clapped. Then Rena spoke. Her voice was clear and confident. "Sometimes a mistake becomes the start of something beautiful. What matters is how we respond to it." After the event, several people came to meet them. They asked how they started the library and the Helping Hands group. Ali shared his notes and encouraged them to begin small. When they returned home, the neighbors welcomed them with applause. They had watched the event on television and felt proud. That night, Karen sat on her porch with a cup of tea. She looked at the street that was now full of trees, lights, and laughter. She remembered the first day they moved in, the loud sound of the pink Porsche and the argument about the driveway. She took a deep breath and smiled. "We have come a long way," she whispered to herself. Rena came out and sat beside her. "Do you miss the old days, Mama?" Karen shook her head. "No, I like these days more. They feel real." Ali passed by and waved. Karen smiled and said, "Good night, Mr. Ali." He waved back. "Good night, Mrs. Karen." "Good night, Rena." The street lights glowed softly as the two women sat in silence. They didn't need words to understand how much had changed. Later that night, as Ali walked through the garden, he stopped beside the small wooden board that said, "Our Green Home." He touched it gently and smiled. The board had been painted by Rena months ago, but the colors still looked bright. It reminded him that small actions done with sincerity never fade. The neighborhood had passed its biggest test yet. They had shown that respect could solve problems faster than anger, and kindness could unite even the most different people. And as the wind moved through the leaves, Ali felt grateful. He looked up at the new tower standing tall in the distance, then at the garden that remained untouched. Both stood as symbols of progress and care side by side. The street was no longer just a place to live. It had become a living example of harmony, built by people who once didn't understand each other but now shared the same dream. Ali walked back to his house quietly, his heart full of peace. The morning sun rose gently over the quiet neighborhood. The street looked clean and beautiful, lined with green trees that swayed in the cool breeze. The small library near the garden had become a lively place where children came every day after school. The Helping Hands group had grown stronger, and many people from nearby streets wanted to join. Ali stood near the garden holding a watering can. He smiled as he watched two children planting new flowers beside the bench. Rena walked up carrying a tray of saplings. She looked cheerful, her hands slightly covered in soil. "Good morning, Mr. Ali," she said. The children finished painting the new signboard. "It says, 'Together we grow'?" Ali nodded happily. "That is a beautiful message. It shows how far this street has come." Karen arrived with a basket of fruits and waved to everyone. "Here is some juice and fruit for the little workers," she said kindly. The children ran to her, excited. She handed out glasses of orange juice and pieces of apple. For the first time in many years, Karen felt like she truly belonged somewhere. People now greeted her warmly. Some even came to her for advice about gardening or cooking. Life had changed, and so had she. That afternoon, a postman arrived on a bicycle. He handed Ali a brown envelope. It was addressed from the city community office. Ali opened it carefully. Inside was a letter signed by the mayor himself. It said, "Dear Mr. Ali, your neighborhood has been chosen for the City Harmony Award. The award is given to communities that promote peace, cooperation, and kindness. Please attend the ceremony next month with your team." Ali's eyes lit up. He smiled and showed the letter to Rena and Karen. Rena gasped in surprise. "This is wonderful. Our street will be on the city map." Karen looked proud. "You deserve this, Mr. Ali. You taught us how to care and how to live peacefully." Ali shook his head gently. "This award belongs to everyone. We all changed together." The news spread quickly. That evening, the neighbors gathered in the garden to celebrate. Someone brought music, others brought snacks, and the children danced around the trees. Laughter filled the air. Rena stood near the pink Porsche, which now looked simple and not so flashy. It was no longer a symbol of pride, but just another car parked politely where it should be. She remembered the day she had towed Ali's blue car. The memory felt strange now. She smiled and whispered to herself, "I was so foolish back then." Ali walked up beside her. "It is not foolish to make mistakes. It is foolish to not learn from them." "You learned well," she nodded. "I want to do something special for the ceremony. Maybe I can prepare a small speech for the children." Ali smiled. "That would be perfect." The following weeks passed quickly as everyone prepared for the ceremony. The city had invited several communities, but everyone knew Ali's neighborhood was the favorite to win. The children made banners. Rena printed pictures of their activities, and Karen helped sew a small flag with the name of their street written on it. On the morning of the event, everyone gathered near the library. They were all dressed neatly. The children wore matching white shirts with blue scarves. Rena wore a simple green dress and carried a folder of notes. Karen wore a light-colored outfit and looked calm and proud. Ali, as usual, looked humble in his clean shirt and cap. He drove his small blue car carefully, and the rest followed in a few cars and bicycles. When they reached the city hall, a large banner read, "City Harmony Awards Celebrating United Communities." Inside the hall, many groups were waiting. Some looked nervous, others confident. The mayor sat on stage with several officials. Cameras flashed, and people applauded as the event began. One by one, different neighborhoods shared their stories. Some talked about cleaning drives, some about food donation programs. Then the announcer called, "Next, we invite Mr. Ali and his team from Greenway Street." Ali walked to the stage with Rena and Karen beside him. The hall grew quiet. Ali began to speak in his calm voice. "Our story began with a mistake," he said. "A misunderstanding between neighbors turned into something good because we chose peace over anger. We learned that respect is the seed from which friendship grows, and when friendship blooms, a community becomes a family." The audience listened with interest. Then Rena stepped forward. She spoke with honesty. "I was the one who made that mistake. I towed my neighbor's car without permission. But instead of shouting at me, he showed me patience and kindness. That changed me forever. It taught me how powerful respect can be. Her voice trembled slightly, but she smiled. Now our street has a library, a garden, and a group that helps others. We don't just live near each other, we live together. The crowd clapped loudly. Karen then spoke for the first time in a public event. Her voice was soft but full of emotion. I used to believe that having more made me happy, but true happiness came when I started giving. Our street is living proof that change begins with one kind act. The mayor stood up and clapped. He said, "This story shows what humanity means. You turned conflict into compassion. You have shown what true community spirit looks like." Then he handed them a golden plaque with the words, "City Harmony Award, Greenway Street," engraved on it. The entire hall cheered. Children from their neighborhood waved their flag proudly. Photographers took pictures and reporters came to interview them. When they returned home, people from nearby areas gathered to congratulate them. Flowers were placed on the garden fence and colorful ribbons decorated the library. The award plaque was placed inside the library where everyone could see it. That night, the neighborhood arranged a small dinner in the open air. There were tables under the trees, fairy lights hanging from branches, and gentle music playing in the background. The air was full of laughter. Rena gave a short speech to the children. "Remember this," she said. "No matter how small your action is, if it is done with kindness, it will make a big difference." The children clapped and promised to continue helping others. Karen watched her daughter speak and felt proud. She turned to Allie. "You have changed her life," she said. Allie smiled. She changed it herself. I only showed her a different way. As the evening went on, people danced, shared stories, and enjoyed simple food. It was not a fancy party, but it felt richer than any celebration Karen had ever seen. Later, when the crowd grew quiet, Allie stood near the bench where everything had once started. Rena joined him. The stars shone above them and the soft sound of crickets filled the night. "Do you remember the day we first met?" Allie asked. Rena nodded. "Yes, I remember how angry I was that morning. I thought everything was about me. But that day taught me who I really was." Allie looked at her kindly. "Every person has two choices when life tests them. One path leads to pride, the other to peace. You chose the second one," Rena smiled, "because you showed me it was the better path." From the other side of the garden, Karen called out, "Come, both of you." The children want a picture. They walked together, joining the crowd for one last photograph. The camera clicked as everyone smiled under the golden lights. The next morning, the newspaper printed their photo on the front page. The headline read, "Greenway Street wins City Harmony Award, a story of unity and respect." People from other neighborhoods visited them, asking how they created such peace. Allie welcomed everyone warmly and shared their simple methods. He told them to start with kindness, patience, and respect. Within a few months, other streets began similar projects. The city slowly changed, one neighborhood at a time. Ali's small act of patience had started a movement of goodness. One evening, as Ali watered his plants, a small boy came running to him with a letter. "Uncle Ali, my teacher said we have to write about heroes. I want to write about you, can I?" Ali smiled and patted the boy's head. "If you write about me, then write that the real heroes are those who stay calm when others lose control." The boy grinned and ran off happily. Rena stood near the library door, watching the scene with a warm smile. "You are becoming famous, Mr. Ali," she teased. Ali chuckled. "Fame is not important. What matters is how many hearts you can make peaceful." The sky slowly turned orange as the sun set behind the trees. The garden glowed softly in the evening light. The wooden signboard that read "Together We Grow" stood proudly near the library. Karen came out with a tray of tea. "Come, both of you. Let us sit and enjoy the evening." They sat together on the bench, sipping tea and watching the children play. Birds flew across the sky, and laughter filled the air once again. Ali looked around and said quietly, "When people care for one another, the world becomes a better place. This is what humanity truly means," Rena nodded. "And it all began with one mistake." Karen smiled. "Sometimes mistakes are just lessons waiting to be learned." The three of them laughed gently. The streetlights turned on, casting a soft glow on the plants and flowers. The air felt calm and full of hope. That night, the stars shone brighter above Greenway Street. It was no longer just a small neighborhood. It was a living story of how patience, kindness, and respect could change even the most difficult situations into something beautiful. And from that day on, Everyone who passed through Greenway Street carried a little bit of that peace with them wherever they went.